One Mediator Media here today, OMM. Today it's all about coronavirus, all about corona. So don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell down below, and let's mediate.
I just left Walter Reed Medical Center, and it's really something very special. The doctors, the nurses, the first responders, and I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment. We have the best medicines, all developed recently, and you're going to beat it. I didn't feel so good. And 2 days ago, I could have left 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I felt great, like better than I have in a long time. I said just recently, better than 20 years ago.
All right. So by now you guys have seen this video. It's gone around all over the place. And ultimately, Trump came out and said he pretty much is feeling better, felt like he was 20 years younger. And a lot of people said he was probably hopped up on some medication. Could be. I don't doubt it. That is probably definitely a portion of it. But just interesting thing here, is what is Trump doing? What is he thinking? That's our goal, to see what's happening here. What's being talked about? What's happening with Trump? Why is he doing this? So let's start off with, he walks out of the hospital, and everybody knows that there's photo ops. He does this. I mean, he just does. And so he walks out of the hospital, and there's a whole group there. The news didn't show you this, but there's a whole pro-Trump group outside of there cheering him on, and with flags and everything. And they didn't show you that, but it was out there. Now, there were people out there who didn't want to see him, people who did, and also just in general. And so he came out of this hospital, walks out, gives that fist pump that everybody's talking about, and he gets into the car, drives off, and then before you know it, he goes out to the White House, and he's out there, pretty much saluting and saying your chief is back in command, ultimately. What do you guys think about this? It's interesting. Let's touch on a few topics, and then we'll come back to it. But ultimately, it's kind of interesting what's happening here. It's definitely some kind of play going on. So let's look at it. Okay, so this first story here by CNN says, reckless out here. White House reporters are furious with the White House for having endangered their lives. So people are complaining because the White House has endangered their lives. One of the complaints is that Kayleigh McEnany pretty much has not been careful. People have not been careful, not been wearing masks. And so they go back and forth about it as far as it not being a safe workplace. They talk about Kayleigh has so many people, effing furious. One White House reporter told CNN Business, it's hard to overstate it, she recklessly endangered the lives of people she is tasked to work with. The White House spokesperson who spoke to CNN Business added that the podium in the briefing room is situated more than the required Centers for Disease Control Prevention 6 feet away from reporters. And so ultimately, this report is just kind of thrown out there. People are not complaining. What do you think? In my situation, I think, okay, I have a workplace that I go to, and there are people who are saying when it's time to come back, I'm not going to. There are those who are saying I'm ready to come back now. If you're not ready to come back, if you're a reporter and you don't feel ready to go, don't. There'll be somebody else to replace you. Obviously, they don't want that. Just want to complain in this situation, my opinion. But at the same time, again, I've come out here and said, the corona thing is a real thing. Definitely take care of each other. But at the same time, if you are doing a job that you feel and you feel that you're a first responder of some sort, that you're an essential worker, for example, then you feel that strongly about it and you're doing your job, then I don't know what to tell you. Talk to your boss. I mean, ultimately, pretty much you have two sides. One is a person wants to wear a mask, another person doesn't. I'm for wearing them just because I'm for taking care of people. But at the same time, if you're 13 feet away from somebody, like if I'm outdoors or even at times indoors, if there's good ventilation, of course, if I'm really far away from somebody, I'm not really that concerned about them or myself. I mean, when Kayleigh McEnany's talking to them, for the most part, she's very far away from everybody, and they all have masks on. So I'm a little confused by all that. And it's funny how it hasn't really come out till now, but interesting stuff. As we know, Kayleigh McEnany came out, and she also has coronavirus now. And so several people from the White House who work with Trump, part of his team. So they all work together. They all mingle. They all apparently choose not to wear a mask, and now they've been contaminated. So I don't know. Let's move on. Let's see what else we find here. Okay, so here's another story by Business Insider. Trump campaign attacks Joe Biden for not having COVID-19. Okay, this is just a ridiculous one. Every once in a while, we have ridiculous reports here. And essentially, this video is kind of interesting. This lady's just talking about how Trump is going to now use his firsthand experience. Let's watch a little bit.
Well, a firsthand experience is always going to change how someone relates to something that's been happening. The president has coronavirus right now. He is battling it head on as toughly as only President Trump can. And listen, that of course that's going to change the way that he speaks of it, because it'll be a firsthand experience.
She is saying here that because he's now experienced it, it's going to be a whole different ballgame. Probably. That's probably going to happen. He is going to address this now. And it's genius in many ways, right? First of all, if he if he put this thing together just for political reasons, and there's lots of conspiracies out there right now in terms of whether he really had it, whether he is safe, whether, I mean, you name it. You know, there were conspiracies that he was dying, and there were things going on with him. He was his breathing was stopping and all kinds of stuff. So there's just conspiracies all over the place. I don't want to feed those. I don't really care to, but just for fun, if he's messing with us just to get elected, that's messed up. Don't do that. A lot of people have died from this, and it's a serious thing. But if he did contract this, he does have it, and he is now going to use it to his advantage. Wow. I mean, the timing is just something else. So I don't know what to think about this. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to assume that he does have it. He did sound sick. He did sound stuffed up when he was speaking. He did look like he had just come down with something. So I'm going to assume that he did, because it would be just way out there if he didn't. I don't even want to go there. I mean, that's going conspiratorial, and that's just not my goal here today. But again, it's going to be interesting because they're already using it, as we saw here, to say that he has now experienced this, therefore, and survived. Therefore, he can speak about it. There's so many things like that, whether it's abuse or this and that, where people say, you know, hey, you haven't gone through it, you don't understand, therefore your thought and your comments are invalid. I think that's going to be the approach here. So let's keep and watch. Tomorrow we have the debate between Harris and Pence. It'll be very interesting. Let's keep an eye out. And so here's what I'm talking about. So here's by Axios, conspiracy theories surge around Trump's COVID diagnosis. And there's all kinds of them. So Trump's faking it. There's 9,000 people who said this. Plot to kill or infect the president. 33,000 people are saying this. So they gave it to him on purpose. Kind of weird how that happened too. Masks don't work. Hydroxychloroquine, so on. So there's tons of conspiracy theories out there. They were asking Trump about why he didn't take that. Apparently he had taken it before several times, but I don't know. He's apparently on several experimental treatments, which is interesting in and of itself. Trump tends to do things kind of in an unexpected way in terms of how he treats things and also how he eats. Apparently he eats nothing but junk food. So I don't know how he is so healthy, but it's maybe something that we don't know. Anyway, so yeah, there's tons of different conspiracies out there. I don't really want to get into too many of them, but just wanted to touch on this. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Everyone turns to Twitter as Trump battles COVID-19. So Twitter, there was a Twitter storm apparently regarding all these things. Twitter has a huge bias. Some things get removed, some things don't, typically they're both offensive, but there is definitely a bias. So keep an eye out for that and definitely look at different sources, because Twitter is definitely choosing as to what is allowed on there. Let's move on. So I wanted to touch on this real quick. I thought, okay, we're dealing with coronavirus again. That's today's topic. I haven't really touched on it too much. Every now and then I do, but today I wanted to focus on this, especially because this lady here, and we'll watch the video real quick. She's stating that her husband died, Nick Cordero, who apparently was in Canada. He did pass away after all, you know, so our thoughts to that family, and you know, happened a little while ago, not too recent, but let's just touch on this video and then talk about it.
We saw what this disease can do, so guess what? We are afraid. We are. I still am.
Amanda Klutz lost her husband to the coronavirus. Broadway star Nick Cordero, the 6'5", physically fit 41-year-old, contracted the disease, ended up on a ventilator, lost a leg, and eventually died.
So to add to that story, so we have here, this is from coming to you from page 6. I'm not too familiar with this, but I just wanted to touch on this particular topic because we just looked at a video where, you know, this person's being talked about. They apparently lost a leg. They apparently were very sick for an event, so on and so forth. And so this particular article says, the surgery went well. The doctor said for Nick's heart and lungs right now, they're in the best condition that they could be, Klutz said in her post. And so this man was doing well. He was 41, had Nothing wrong with him, apparently. There were no existing conditions. His right leg is still an issue, it says here. There has been some blood flow issues coming down to his foot. Now, this is back in April. I believe that's when he passed. He was 41, diagnosed with coronavirus, and has been fighting for his life at the time. He had been fighting. No issues. Came in. I want to focus on that leg. And so the issue with the leg and coronavirus is that there's a blood clotting issue. Let's take a look at it. So Science Magazine says blood vessel attack could trigger coronavirus fatal second phase. What is the second phase? Okay, so second phase. So this from Science Magazine. Blood vessel attack could trigger coronavirus fatal second phase. So what is the second phase? So from personal experience, seeing people who I've known go through this, hearing about it, and also reading about it. So it looks like the second phase, people come in, they get put on a vent, they start doing better, and then suddenly, before you know it, they're having issues and they're gone. This particular article is going to go into some of that, and I really want to cover that because it's crucial as to what we're talking about, especially when we're talking about the president getting better quickly and what it means for us. So here it says dozens of studies have revealed similar patterns of vascular damage in people who died of COVID-19. For example, a 21 May paper in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that the lungs of COVID-19 victims had 9 times as many blood clots as those who died of H1N1 flu. Blood clots. Other studies have noted inflammatory symptoms in children and strokes in otherwise healthy young adults. Now, researchers have woven these findings into a new hypothesis explaining why some patients slip into a fatal second phase of COVID-19. Why? When was this? June 2nd. We've had this information for a few months already. Why do we not hear more about it? The key is direct and indirect damage to the endothelial cells that line blood vessels, particularly the lungs. By attacking those cells, COVID-19 infection causes vessels to leak and blood clot. Those changes in turn spark inflammation throughout the body and fuel the acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS, responsible for most patient death. Why is this important? Well, we see a president who is recovering quickly. We know he's receiving not only experimental treatments, which is a choice of his own, because even that's a risk in and of itself, but we also know that he received several anti-inflammatory treatments, including steroids of various types. They're treating inflammation. We go to the hospital, we get put on a vent if we're in that condition, of course. And we're going to go into a few other treatments that they do. But that being said, we don't get treated for this inflammation. And this is something that has been, I've read about this back in like March, April-ish, where they were finding that there was a blood clotting issue. I've read some things in Natural News, read some things in various other news sources, but it was pretty much just put away, shoved under the rug. Why is that? Well, mainstream media, they're so concerned about this. I'm really curious to know why they're not letting us know this information more frequently, or at least put it out there so we're aware of it. Let's go to the next article. So Newsroom, okay, Weill Cornell Medicine says, what is known about COVID-19 and abnormal clotting? What is known? Not what hypothesis, not what we're guessing. What is known? Known means fact. Fact means this is concrete. We have this evidence. July 2nd, 2020. Why do we not yet hear about this? It says many COVID-19 patients in the ICU are developing blood clots, including clots in small vessels, deep vein thrombosis in the legs. We just saw this guy, 41 years old, died of it. He had some issue in his legs due to blood clotting. Why are we not being treated for this? It says, and stroke clots in cerebral arteries. This has been happening even though these patients, in accordance with standard intensive care practice, are put on blood thinner drugs such as heparin to prevent clots as soon as they come into the ICU. So we would say, okay, great. They're being treated for it with heparin. They are given blood thinners, which should help with blood clots, right? Well, let's see what it says. So it says, it's hard to know for sure because the clotting problem is apt to go undetected. Why is it going undetected when we know this is a problem? That means we're not looking for it. Most often, the cause of death in severe COVID-19 is respiratory failure. Okay, so that's something we've known, but it may also be due to clotting. That's something we don't hear about. The lungs of people who die of respiratory failure due to COVID-19, especially if they have not yet been on a ventilator, often do not show the kind of damage seen in people who have died of other acute respiratory distress syndromes. Instead, the lung tissue usually will have blood clots in the small vessels. There's blood clots, which hints that clotting is at least contributing to the respiratory failure. Really? Okay. So we put them on the vent. This high pressure air is blown in there. So you got pressure coming in. You got clotting on the other end, which ruptures these blood vessels. And it leads to another type of pressure in there in terms of when you have inflammation, that edema that builds, the mucus, the what we're seeing in terms of a pneumonia, so on and so forth. You have this pushing in, that pushing that way. What happens? The person dies. There's a rupture. There's apparently ruptures to blood clotting in the lungs, blood clotting in the heart, blood clotting in the legs, the entire body. Let's keep on going here. It says complement proteins can powerfully mobilize other elements of the immune system, leading to hyperinflamed state. We have evidence and knowledge that complement proteins, which are released, can powerfully mobilize other elements of the immune system. This virus releases this. In other words, the virus itself may be directly setting off an immune cascade that results in clotting. We know this, and we're not doing much about it. We have had some anecdotal success with argabatron, which directly inhibits thrombin, a key element of the clot forming system in the blood, and have submitted a paper for review for that observation. Really, we have this information. We're just submitting papers for observation. Really, we have 215,000 that have died, and we're still trying to decide if something is appropriate. When we know what is known, we know about COVID-19. So it says the current standard practice based on evidence we have to date, we mentioned it, is to put everyone who is hospitalized with COVID-19 on blood thinner at a minimum. So we give you the minimum treatment. We give you blood thinners. Let's keep on reading as to what that means. And in many hospitals now, recovering COVID-19 patients are discharged on blood thinners, even if normally they wouldn't need them because we're so concerned about clotting. So we give you blood thinners. Okay, we would think, great, they're actually treating people for this. But let's keep on reading. What gave me a clue to the importance of complement was a study published about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, this study was published. The researchers in that study found that knocking out complement system either genetically or by giving anti-complement drugs protected mice from severe disease when they were exposed to the SARS coronavirus, which is closely related to SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus that causes COVID-19. They studied this with SARS, studied this with a similar disease to COVID-19, and they found this information, and yet we're still wondering what's going on with people. And so when you see somebody like Trump getting better in a few days, again, he's not out of the woods. Keep an eye on that. Pray for him. But I'm not saying he is the issue. What I'm saying is the mainstream media, the CDC, the WHO, all these people giving us bogus information are not covering this. And when we see our president receiving treatments that knock out inflammation, that may be experimental in some ways, but we know that steroids have been around for a while and they're anti-inflammatories. He's given anti-inflammatory medication for his condition, and he's feeling much better. He's doing much better, and so on and so forth. Why are we not receiving that when they clearly know this? And it's not being treated. You come in, you're given this ventilator, which we received thousands of ventilators, millions probably. I don't know the exact number. But that being said, what's going on? This is what we should be questioning. This is what we should be looking at. Not blaming a president, not blaming all these people. These institutions are not looking out for us, and that's what we need to look at. Let's move on. So Dr. Fauci says we should prepare to hunker down again. Here's how to mentally get through the fall and winter. So once again, he's going to tell us to lock down, hide, and it'll go away. It's not going to go away that way. It's a virus. Every year we have new viruses. Every year we have flus that come, and I'm not saying it's a flu. It's obviously very different. This is causing blood clots to happen. This is not a typical thing. What I am saying is this is not the solution. Absolutely not. Why don't you give us good treatment for the things that we know? This is ridiculous. And in this situation, I'm in agreement with the president. It's time to get beyond this and time to look at real solutions. This is ridiculous. Let's move on. So it's not just me. It looks like many people out there says even as infections rise, nations see protests against coronavirus restrictions, and it's all over the place. There's London, United Kingdom, I saw Spain, there's Germany, it's all over the place. People are fed up. They're saying we are tired of these draconian measures. We don't want to be locked down anymore. It says, wake up, sheep on here. And people are getting fed up. And then you have a president getting over it quickly. So what's going on? Let's use our brains ourselves, figure things out, and not depend on these ridiculous things that are being told to us. It's a serious threat, but it's not being treated seriously. This is absurd. Let's move on. So one thing I found that was interesting. So there's Pence here. It says Pence ordered closure of U.S. borders against CDC's wishes on this report. This is 3 days ago by The Hill, and it says Vice President in March reportedly ordered the Director for Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, to use its emergency powers to close the U.S. borders, despite top scientists saying that there was no evidence that doing so would reduce the spread of COVID-19. These are the people who told us masks don't work. Yes, they do work. No, they don't work. We're not sure if it's a respiratory thing. We're not sure if it spreads via air particles. We're not sure if it's touching surfaces. No, it is touching surfaces. Wash your hands. Wait, it might be spread through the air. Maybe it's not. It's 13 distance. It's 6 foot. This is ridiculous. And they tried to close everything down, and the CDC said you shouldn't because there's no evidence that worked. I think we're being lied to, people. We're being lied to big time. And we need to wake up here. CDC acknowledges coronavirus can spread via airborne transmission October 5th. A couple weeks ago, I covered a story on here, and they said essentially this information had leaked out. It was draft information, and they pulled it back because this person shouldn't have released it. We now released it. And so there's 2 more weeks of bogus information that we don't know whether it's airborne or not. Of course it is. We know that. Let's use our common sense. The CDC, the experts apparently don't know that. It's common sense. It's spreading. When something spreads, it's via touching air. It's via particles. Those particles are spread by touching, by licking if you're licking things, by whatever means. But this is common sense. CDC, who are not doing their jobs, it's ridiculous. What do you even say about this? What do you say? The CDC still says the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, is most frequently spread among people in close contact with one another through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, talks. Okay, we've known that. Why are we being told this? Sometimes an infected person breathing heavily, for example, while singing or exercising, the CDC said. But not protesting. All these things, but not protesting. That won't do it. That won't spread it because people wear masks. Even though they're side by side, even though they're screaming, spitting, jumping, some of them not wearing masks, some of them, it's ridiculous. We got to stop listening to these people. I'm done with this. Let's move on. So last thing here, a couple things. Just want to put out there, Trump pretty much put just a crazy amount of tweets out today. So he talked about tax increases if Biden gets in. Governor wants to obliterate Second Amendment in Virginia. Make sure you vote right. Stock market, strongest ever military law and order, religious liberty, biggest tax cut ever, 401ks. I mean, he just covered every single thing. He just went on a rampage here. And we're looking at pretty much from 330, 347, 351, 402, 404, 405, better, cheaper healthcare. He went on a rampage. He wants us to know that he's here and he's coming strong. It says peace through strength. Bring our soldiers home. Vote. That particular statement worries me because that almost sounds Orwellian, but hey. So anyway, interesting stuff going on today. He's back. He's on there. He wants us to know that, I think he looks kind of sick. Maybe he just does normally. Not sure. This guy eats a ton of fast food and they even say he's overweight. I don't know. I haven't weighed the guy, but ultimately he's doing well. So I don't know. Again, he received treatment as a president, which he should. I don't have a Secret Service. I don't have bodyguards. I don't live in the White House. I don't get any of this stuff. I'm not the president. As a president, they take care of you extra, right? So they're going to make sure nobody shoots you, etc. In his case, it makes sense. But at the same time, why are we not receiving similar treatment, especially when we have this information? That's what gets to me. Anyway, last thing here. So out on the 405 freeway, we have this big sign that was posted up by somebody. Don't know when, don't know how. It just showed up. They took it down already, but it's kind of crazy. Life is nuts right now. It says Trump, huge sign off the freeway. And in California, of all places. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Anyway, that's all we got for you guys. That wraps up our show today, guys. Thank you for stopping by. Lots of stuff going on. Coronavirus, Donald Trump, the world. Everybody's reacting to this. I haven't touched on this subject for a while, but coronavirus is still here, still real, and still dealing with it. Let's see what happens in the next few days, next few weeks. A lot of stuff is going to happen. Trump's using this to his advantage. Biden's going to use it to his one way or another. We're not sure how that is. Keep an eye out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, share this video, share all our videos. put it out there because the more you put it out there, the more you're going to see. And we want to definitely provide you guys with a lot of good info. So thank you guys for stopping by, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.